Well, hey there, everybody. Welcome to beginner guitar video number 13. This video, we're going to finally finish up the scale across the fretboard, get to the point where it all starts over. So we're going to cover what's called the Mixolydian mode, which means you start from the 5th scale degree. Don't read my hand. Top secret. Anyhow. Mixolydian starts from the 5th scale degree, so in our case, for G, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Start from the 10th fret. Now, we go back to the shapes I'm always talking about. This one will be 3 major shapes, followed by the 2 diminished shapes, which come after the major shapes. Up here, so it's the same stuff. So those 2 there are the same as those 2 there. Start from the 5th scale degree. You've got 3 major shapes, 2 diminished, but remember it's the funny string there. So diminished up a fret, diminished shape, followed by 1 minor shape. Fret numbers, it's going to be 10, 12, 14, 10, 12, 14 on the A string, 10, 12, 14 on the D string, 11, 12, 14 on the G string, 12, 13, 15 on the funny string on the B string, and then 12, 14, 15 up on the high E string. Okay? And so one way of thinking of it is, you know, exactly what we talked about just a minute ago. 3 major shapes, diminished shape, minor shape. Or you could think of playing the major shape below, one below where the major scale starts. So after you've done that, you continue on playing your major scale just like you would here. Okay, so there is the octave up of there. So you got G major would start from there, or D Mixolydian. And so that kind of rounds out everything up now. So now you know with your major scale, you've got major, major, diminished, diminished, minor, minor. Mixolydian is 3 majors. And then it continues on with your diminished shapes and your minor. Dorian is 1 minor shape. And then major, 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 diminished, diminished. So I keep talking about those shapes because it's so much easier to just know the shape, know how it feels in your hand, and go do whatever scale you need to do at that point. Say you need to play like G Mixolydian, you take exactly what we just did there, and it's just 3 majors, and now you've played a G Mixolydian scale. Simply by moving that thing we just did there in G major down to there. So we went from D Mixolydian to playing a G Mixolydian scale just then. That shape moves over and over. And then what happens, since we're on the final scale of filling out the fretboard, because we've already covered minor. If not, go back and watch that video where we cover that little segment. Well, that same thing happens right there. Why? Because 0 and 12 are the same note, just an octave up. So now that we've covered the Mixolydian, then from there you'll play your minor. Hopefully better than that. And then everything just starts over, and then you do low Korean here, which is just an octave up. From there, and now you've essentially covered the entire fretboard. From there, and why I keep pushing these, shapes, the major, major, diminished, diminished, minor, minor, the succession of these things, is because now, say you do that, play G Mixolydian here like we just talked about instead of G major, then everything falls in place around it, just like we've discussed in all the previous videos. So G Mixolydian right there, well, that means that F Lydian lands right there. And it makes it very easy to start transposing, playing in different keys, different modes, and moving things around when you start to put those patterns together and go, oh, okay, well, if I'm doing the, Mixolydian or 3 major or whatever you want to call it in your head, if I'm doing that here, then the rest of it all lands around it just like it did in G major, only I shifted gears. So take G major and think about this. Our D Mixolydian we know is in G major. It's the Mixolydian shape from G major. Well, everything that we've done up to this point and how it lands around that is exactly how it's going to land around any Mixolydian scale without any alterations. No raised sevenths or flat thirds or anything weird like that. Without any alterations, everything's going to land around there. So if we go from G Mixolydian, which is C major, if D Mixolydian, if G is there, and we know D Mixolydian is part of G major, then to find what key you're actually in, say if you start on G Mixolydian, C major, because the 4th scale degree from there is your root. That's what we just discovered with D Mixolydian. And all those things will move around just like they did before. So again, another example, in G major, we know we've got A Dorian, right? Where's the G land in A Dorian? The G is right there. So anytime you're playing a Dorian, you can think about it 2 ways. You can think of the key that I'm actually in is that note, or just a whole step back from where I started. Because Dorian's the 2nd scale degree. It's not very far removed, so it's easy to think of that. Like, oh, if I'm playing Dorian, say I'm playing Dorian here, right? That means E flat. This note is the key I'm in. So, I just wanted to wrap up the fretboard, get that last scale out there for you guys, and then kind of rant about how it's all related so that you can start to see for yourself that it's really not that complicated. People overcomplicate it. This stuff that we just covered all moves together. It's one big thing that moves together. Sure, we've given each part of it a different name. One part of it's called Dorian, but once we get really good at it, we're not going to be thinking about that. We're going to pass through Dorian to whatever notes we're looking for. We might pass through Mixolydian to get to where we're going, You might, over that, over your G, you can play the open G and just kind of get a feel. Mixolydian to kind of go, what do I think of how that sounds? Or Dorian. And then you get way back down there. Sorry, I'm getting kind of off track, but I'm doing it in a way on purpose because I want everyone that starts watching these videos, hopefully someday, You know, it'd be nice if they're watching them now, but someday. Oh, I just don't want anybody to ever be afraid of, you know, scales and theory and just the guitar in general, because you don't even need to know the big theory behind it if you know these shapes and realize that they're all one big thing that just shifts gears. You know, to go from playing in G major to F major, you just take everything we've learned in these last videos covering all of the scale across the fretboard, take all of that and move every single shape back 2 frets, and you're in a new key. Now you're in F major, which leads to, you know, F major, G Dorian, A Phrygian, B flat Lydian, C Mixolydian, D minor or Aeolian, up to E Locrian, back to F major. All of those things will land exactly the way they did in G, only back 2 frets. And now you're in F major, and you can go wherever you want. F major or oh my God, my brain just took a nap on me. Or B flat minor, right? Or, you know, or any of the modes too. I know this is still beginner stuff, so I don't want to get too carried away with talking about playing modally. But yeah, the major and its relative minor, all that stuff, same shapes, same exact shapes, just down 2 frets. Or if you want to go up to A major, not there, that's that, A major, opposite, you move everything up 2 frets, you're golden. That's all you have to do is remember these shapes, major, 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 diminished, diminished, minor for your Mixolydian, or major, major, diminished, diminished, minor, minor for your major, and where they land in accordance to each other, and just in your head solidify that as one big thing that just moves together. Anyhow, sorry about kind of like the goofy ranting, but this was the time to finally like seal the deal on the fretboard and then explain to you that it's actually very simple if you don't make it complicated. Because I feel like most people make it really like complicated, like it's more than it is. It's not. It's just all these chunks move together as one big thing to create one key signature. And then from there, you can color how you want to. We'll get in the intermediate guitar stuff. We talk about playing in modes, and then you can see like, oh, it's the same thing. It's just what we call one, or what we refer to as home, has moved. But it's still the same thing. It's all very, I don't know why I'm so pumped about that idea today, that like, make it in your head, convince yourself it's simple. It will be simple, because at the end of the day, it is kind of simple. It's like, oh, these things just go together as one. Anyhow, got a little crazy talking there, and you guys probably got sick of listening to it, but that's okay. Have a wonderful day. You're going to do awesome.